Hi everyone, welcome to my channel about living in New Zealand. It's Anna here. Today I want to discuss a very important topic. Main reasons why you shouldn't move to New Zealand or who shouldn't move to New Zealand. Why this country might not be for you. As with any place in this world, it's not ideal and some points might just turn it off. New Zealand is an amazing place to live, but it also has many cons about it. So in today's video I will point out all cons of living in New Zealand or reasons why you might consider not moving here. So I will go from the most important reasons to least important reasons which might affect your decision on moving here. Starting with the housing crisis. New Zealand is going through housing crisis, but what I mean by housing crisis? You can see it in many main cities in New Zealand where there are not many houses available and they are very pricey. I'm talking about rent. The rent is very high and also there is huge demand, meaning you will be standing in a line with many other applicants. So landlords have all the choice to decide who they want to pick as a tenant. You will be just, standing in line even to visit an apartment or a house. So there would be plenty of applicants, there would be high competition and there would be high prices. Very difficult to get a good house and it's almost impossible to get a furnished house. So most houses are rented unfurnished. You have to be also prepared for this when you move here so that you will have to furnish your own place. So that's the first point. Be prepared, put some time and effort in finding a house and finding an affordable house if you're lucky. The next important reason not to move to New Zealand are low salaries. Salaries here are not that high, so the average salary for 2022 was 56,000 New Zealand dollars, which is about 44,000 US dollars. When you deduct taxes from it, you will be left only with about 45,000 New Zealand dollars. So for a month it's about 3,700 New Zealand dollars, which is about 2,300 US dollars. So it's really not that much considering high living costs. And it's also the third point not to move to New Zealand is the ratio of income and living expenses. So income is pretty low for that high cost of living which we have here. So for example, you will get an average salary of 56,000 New Zealand dollars, but maybe your cost of living will be 60,000 per year, because average cost of living for a single individual in the main city of New Zealand like Auckland or Wellington is almost 4,500 New Zealand dollars. And for a family it's almost double it. So as a family, for example, you have 2 children, you will need to have about 8,000 New Zealand dollars per month to have a good quality of life. If you translate it to US dollars, for a single it's about 2,500 US dollar and for a family it's about 4,500. But average salary for a single is about 2,300 US dollars. So the average cost of living for a single is even higher than average salary. So it's very difficult to have a good quality of life with the average salary. So that's why also many singles here, they prefer to rent a room instead of the house or an apartment, because it's very pricey to afford an entire place, which I see as a big issue, because as an adult you want to live in your own house, but because of the high cost of living you cannot afford even to rent an entire house, so you have to rent a room. This is the big issue, which combined of low income, high housing prices and a really bad ratio between this. I'm not even going to mention the cost of produce like groceries, for example vegetables and fruits. They are way above what we should pay for here, so you have to really watch out what are you buying with the average salary. That's just to notice. So let's jump to next point why maybe you shouldn't move to New Zealand. The next point, if you want to travel. And if you want to travel internationally. So you probably already know where New Zealand is located, so it's very far away from everything. Even if you want to fly to Australia, it will take you at least 3 hours. And if you want to fly to Europe, plan about 20 hours and you will need also to make a layover somewhere. So it's very time consuming to travel somewhere and also pricey because flights are pretty expensive. Even within New Zealand it's pretty pricey. Consider if you want to travel internationally, you are very into traveling, or you're a travel blogger or vlogger, you make a living by traveling, this is not a great place to be because it will take you forever to go somewhere, and it's pretty exhausting when you have to fly 20 hours, so you will have like plan 2 days for only flying, so you can fly and recover and then you can move on with your life. It can be a big turn off for people who are into travel and plan to move to New Zealand. The next point that you might consider not moving to New Zealand is the natural disasters. Yes, we have it here. There are floods, as you might have heard. There was the biggest flood in January this year, I guess the biggest in the history. There are even earthquakes, there are small tsunamis, there are volcano eruptions. Yes, there are plenty of these nasty things, but they are not very often, so it's still a good thing that it's not happened very often, but it can happen. And if you have it in your mind and you are just freaking out and you really pay attention to it, that's maybe not the great place because there is always risk of something. For example, the second largest city, Christchurch, was pretty much destroyed by several earthquakes in 2011. There is still a chance, so you should consider it. If you're really afraid of natural disasters, it's a really important thing for you. You shouldn't move here. Next point, if you want to rely on public transportation or you like to use public transportation instead of the car or a bicycle, in New Zealand public transportation is much less developed as in other countries. So you can expect to see some public transport in main cities like Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, but many of them only comes to buses. Some have also ferries, a few trains going around, but it's not that developed as you used to probably, if you're not from US of course. So don't expect just to take a subway or underground everywhere and get there in a few minutes, because this won't happen. Sometimes bus comes only once per half an hour and you have to wait there, so it's not very convenient to use public transport for a daily commute unless you live in Auckland and there are everything aligns that it's very convenient to use public transport. But even in Auckland, some people have not really great roads where they have to take a bus to make a change and then again change, so it's not super convenient, just keep it in mind. Next point, not to move to New Zealand if you love shopping. It's like how you spend your free time, you go shopping every weekend. It's not a great place for shoppers because there are not many shops at all. It's not a shopping culture here. People are not obsessed with shopping. It's not how they spend their free time. New Zealand even doesn't have IKEA. So there are some department stores like Kmart or Warehouse, but many stores which you probably used to, they are not available here. You probably have to ship many things here, so you have to order, it will be shipped to New Zealand. So shopping here, it's different experience than you probably used to in your country, just consider it. Another point not to move to New Zealand and why it might be not for you, the vibrant city life. If you really love cities, it's everything what you want of your life, just to be in the hustle and bustle of the city with this culture, with a big megapolis. You are thriving by being in a city bustling center. New Zealand doesn't have it. Here people live more provincially outside of the large cities, or in Auckland. Even in Auckland it doesn't feel like it's a large city with this atmosphere like you get in New York or in Paris or in London. It's different, so you will not get it here. It will be not the same as you might experience in other countries. So don't move here because of vibrant city life, because it's only available in Auckland and to some point, but it cannot be compared to cities in other countries. That brings me to the next point. If you want to live in a city with plenty of things to do, with events, things going on every second, you know, in many cities, even in Germany, not talking about Berlin, but many small cities, they have events. Every second day there's something going on. There are some festival, some beer festival, some music festival, some food truck festival. In New Zealand it's much less. It's much more a rare occasion to see an event or a festival. even the festival, there are only few of them. You will not have this amazing, great, like huge music festivals as you used to in maybe Germany or France. You know, it's not the most vibrant and most event orientated place. So if you love events and it's what you do, like every evening you go to events and you just love to be social, it's not the best place in the world. It still has it, and it has it in large cities like Auckland, Wellington, and a little bit in Christchurch, but it cannot be compared again to some other countries like in Europe or maybe even in Canada and US. Next point, you shouldn't move to New Zealand is if you want to get a managerial job. You want to be a manager, you want to lead people, and you're a foreigner, it's not a great idea, I guess, because many Kiwis who hire managers, for example, another manager will look rather for Kiwi to lead other people. They unlikely will hire a foreigner for a managerial position because you have a different background, you are from different country, you don't understand how people tick here, how they work, how to lead them. So even if you think about it logically, it's pretty strange if someone wants to hire a manager who isn't from here, right? You have to at least get some experience, work a couple of years to understand the work culture here, how everything is organized, how to manage people, and then maybe you can get a managerial job, but not right when you move here. That's not a great place to be. The next point not to move here is if you want to start a business. So many people move here because they have a job. They come to New Zealand to work. If you want to come here to start a business, to run a business, or to move your old business here, it's really difficult, and it's just not a great idea, really, because New Zealand, as you can understand already, it's so small, the market is small, so you will have much less opportunities, but it's also very difficult from the immigration perspective because there is only one visa for business people, which is business visa or self-employed visa, which is very difficult to obtain and it can take years. From visa point, it's very difficult, but from the business point, it's also difficult because you're in a small country with a very small market. We mostly already have everything here, so there is not big demand to bring something or to develop something, and if you even might start some business, it probably would be the small business because this country is thriving on small businesses. There are like thousands of small companies and businesses rather than large ones, but then you will really struggle to be profitable because it's very expensive to hire people here. The minimum wage is very high, so you have to pay good wages, but you probably will have not great profits because it's just the state of it. It's not the greatest country to be a business person. Compared to US, it's just like compared to any large country. If you are in a large country, you have a large market, you have a lot of opportunities. It's not a business country, really. So for starting a business, just look somewhere else. If you want just to start a business and to have your visa, but not make really money, like really good money, you can do it, but I would not advise it. Another point, not to move to New Zealand. If you want to own a house, you want to buy a house prices are very high here. The average house price is over 1 million New Zealand dollars, which is like over 600,000 US dollars. In countries like United States, you can get a decent house for 200,000 US dollars. And even the median house price in entire United States is about 400,000 US dollars. So here you pay almost 200,000 more for average house, but it's also even more expensive in some areas. In Auckland, you will pay over 1.3 million New Zealand dollars for a house. The prices are like skyrocketed already for a few years, so they are only going up and up, so it's very not a great idea to buy a house in the main city because you have to take a huge mortgage. So you might reconsider moving to New Zealand if you want to buy your own house and in one of the main cities. Of course, you can get a more affordable house in a smaller place, in a small location in New Zealand, but overall it's pretty pricey. So the second to last point, not to move to New Zealand if you expect amazing weather all the year round, like you moving to Bali or Thailand. New Zealand isn't Bali or Thailand or even Australia. The weather here is very similar to Europe, like United Kingdom. Actually, I made an analysis of the weather in United Kingdom and New Zealand, and it's ended up to be very, very similar too. nowhere you're moving to, because you will see here rain, you will see here even snow in some locations, and it's overall very changeable, and it's not always warm, it actually gets pretty cold. So don't expect to have a tropical climate here, because it's not tropical climate. So the weather can be very challenging here, especially in some locations where we get like a lot of rain, because the rain precipitation numbers are varying within the country, and some regions get a lot of rain. Like for example, this summer some regions got so much rain as never before. So just make your research where you're moving to which region, because weather is changing and it's not Bali. So the last point, not to move to New Zealand. If you love architecture, historical cities, you like to go sightseeing, New Zealand is a new country, so you should not expect to see here many old buildings. There aren't many. There are some in the South Island, in Dunedin and Christchurch, but you cannot also compare it to historical cities in the United Kingdom, for example, or in other places. Even the United States and Canada have more history than New Zealand. New Zealand has Maori history. I'm talking about European history. Of course, here we have Maori history. There are some sites, especially in North Island. So the Maori history is very prevalent here. So that might be something you move to, but not for European culture, not for European history. So in that sense, you will not see many castles, any castles or architectural sites, and there would not be many city tours you can do where you can see all these old buildings and, you know, this feeling of Europe. Now, of course, it's not Europe, so you shouldn't expect it. But if it's something you're looking forward to, maybe you should reconsider moving here. This was the last point. It was 14 reasons not to move to New Zealand, or why this country might be not for you. I hope it was insightful. If you come up with something additional, just write it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because there will be plenty of videos about New Zealand. And I also have a website, simplenewzealand.com, where I'm writing also about living in New Zealand. Just check it out if you are interested.